Greetings and welcome to this portion of the 2020 online season of the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival. This is John Manasse, and I'm sitting here with my wonderful colleague, John Nakamatsu. Together, we are the artistic directors of the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival. It's a musical gathering that's taken place for 40 summers on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. The festival was founded in 1980 by pianist Samuel Sanders and has since expanded into 4 weeks of chamber music performances and events throughout the Cape each August. This year, of course, is a first for all of us as we navigate presenting content and performances in the midst of the COVID pandemic restrictions. As a result, we bring you this online series composed primarily of archived recordings from past live performances at the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival.
And John, as you mentioned, this unusual time in our lives really did give us pause and an opportunity to look retrospectively at our festival. And what a pleasure it has been for us to relive and discover so many of the incredible performances by renowned artists that have taken place over the years. The main work for today's program actually comes from a concert at the First Congregational Church of Chatham on October 29, 2006. The performers were Boston's own Borromeo String Quartet, and the work, Johannes Brahms' Sextet in B-flat major, Opus 18. The violist Liz Freifogel and cellist Daniel McDonough joined the Borromeo in this performance. A little later in the program, John and I will be talking to Nicholas Kitchen, the first violinist of the Borromeo String Quartet and our predecessor here at the festival. Nick was the artistic director for the 7 seasons that preceded our arrival on the Cape.
But before we bring you the Brahms, we thought we'd give you a sample of a composer who's not quite a household name and you may not know so well. His name is Josef Wölfl. Born in 1773, appears to be a contemporary of Beethoven. So hopefully John Nakamatsu is very familiar with Wölfl because he's made this magnificent recording. And is Wölfl a familiar name to pianists, John?
No, not really. You'd really only know about Wölfl from reading Beethoven biographies. It's strange because in his time he was very famous, considered a rival of Beethoven as a pianist and to an extent as a composer. But Wölfl, unlike Beethoven, wasn't as consistently adventurous or musically challenging, and that probably explains his popularity, at least publicly. Yet in his works, we still do see a number of pianistic innovations in terms of technique and even very interesting musical ideas and some really great material. And frankly, his music is just fun for us to play. So I think that's why we gravitate toward it when we find it.
Yeah, well, we can definitely hear the fun in this selection, and also admiring your skills as a high school German teacher, one-time high school German teacher. Your pronunciation of Wölfl puts mine to shame. But this is the final movement of the piano sonata in C major, Opus 33, number 1, by the Austrian composer Josef Wölfl. And the performance is not live, and nor is it one from the festival. It comes from our very own Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival's John Nakamatsu's recording on a Harmonia Mundi CD from 2003. You've been listening to the third movement rondo of the Piano Sonata in C major, Opus 31, number 1, by the composer Josef Wölfl, born just 3 years after Ludwig van Beethoven. And the pianist in this performance was none other than the great John Nakamatsu. John, I have to ask you, what is it like hearing yourself in a recording that you've made many years ago?
Well, it's pretty traumatic. I, I don't like listening to myself, and I think even, something that I just did sometimes is scary, but something from the past seems almost like another human. So I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
Well, I guess you are another human, but what a marvelous performance of that. Thank you for sharing that. One of the great pleasures of being associated with the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival over the years has been the feeling of camaraderie, history, friendship, both on the stage and off, and actually that feeling gets renewed every season. Of course, a big part of that is the loyalty of the past festival artists and administrators who make time in their busy schedules to support the festival and accept our invitations to return year after year. And now such is the case with our interview guest today, violinist Nicholas Kitchen, of course of the Borromeo String Quartet, current artistic director of the Heifetz International Music Institute, the former artistic director of the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you, John and John.
Well, so Nick, it's just always great to see you. I'm not sure I ever asked you this, but what brought you to the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival in the first place, and eventually to the artistic director's chair?
Well, the Borromeo Quartet, way back, we formed right around 1990, 1989. And very soon after that, we were encouraged to do the Young Concert Artists auditions. And we did that. And it was interesting because they had not had a quartet for quite a few years at that point. So when we did win it, we became unbelievably busy instantly. I think we played maybe even 100 concerts in that first year that we worked with them. It was a little crazy, but wonderful, just what we needed. Well, but getting back to that very first moment of receiving the award, someone who was on that jury was Samuel Sanders. And as part of the way he listened to the auditions, he made a prize that was to be invited to what was then the Cape and Islands Chamber Music Festival. And already on the stage, as we were receiving the award, we were busy talking about what we would be probably doing that summer. And we came up with, I remember, a pretty elaborate plan. And we played with Sam, and we played with, we had a wonderful time. And of course, as is always the case, we're moving all over the Cape. I think that was my first time coming to Cape Cod, so got very familiar with it very fast. And then he had us come back a few times. And then Brian Ziegler, who took over from Sam, also invited us to come back. I suppose it might have been every year. I just can't quite remember, but certainly a lot of times.
Yeah, Nick, I have to say, I remember it really well because that's where I met you for the first time, and Sam
That's
put us
right.
together in the Mozart
That's right.
Clarinet Quintet. So, it's become a big family in that way. One of the things, you know, John and I are interested in, of course, is taking over the reins from you. Did you have a particular vision coming into the position of artistic director? How did that change or evolve during your tenure at the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival?
Well, a few interesting things happened that I can say had a lot to do with me. One was we changed the name of the festival, so it was Cape and Islands seemed to very much too often have people hear Cayman Islands, and that
Right.
just didn't quite work out. And Cape Cod Chamber
Well,
Music Festival, they got it straight right away, and we liked that, and everybody liked that. So that's what happened. And interestingly, and this is kind of ironic, that Sam Sanders had been the artistic director, and then Brian Ziegler, both pianists. And I think in the spirit of helping out the festival, they had been very tolerant of some instruments that were not ideal. And actually, I guess I was very, very vigorous about insisting that we change that. And so it was during that time that we got the Steinway that's in Wellfleet, and also the Steinway that's in Chatham. And we had another good piano that has suffered a little since then. But the point is, there was a lot of effort, and it actually I felt very good about the fact that that meant that there was a baseline which everyone could count on. That's a pun as well. That was coming from really a beautiful instrument that the pianist could really count on. As far as vision, I think there was also just, I think, by and large, I wanted to continue wonderful things that had been happening over many years. But we did do a lot of adventurous things too. We did some things with multimedia things. We did some things with percussion, and just, we had something called Adventures in Chamber Music, which really did some rather wild ideas. And it was fun to do that without contradicting the programming that people loved and one felt was more traditional to the festival. So we were kind of doing both.
So, Nick, can you tell us a little bit about the Brahms sextet that we're about to hear?
Well, the B flat sextet is, I would say, one of the most. The word that comes to mind is heartful. It's not quite a word, but that's the only one I can think of. The melodies of that piece are kind of unforgettable, and they have this way of expressing a fullness of warmth that is almost no other piece I can think of is like that. Even when you compare it to the other Brahms sextet, which they're both gorgeous pieces, but the G major sextet is a much cooler way of kind of unfolding beauty, whereas the B flat sextet, it just it literally opens the heart with the way its ideas come into being, and there's just such a sense of sort of the whole group just kind of, it's like the warm water of a river is somehow brought into what happens. And the second movement is a little bit, has a slightly stern aspect, but it's interesting. It's in a category of music that I discovered. Beethoven, when he wrote the Seventh Symphony, one of the most famous movements for its use of rhythm, the second movement, that is. And this bum, 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 bum. It turns out, actually, Maynard Solomon writes a whole article about how that rhythm came from epic poetry, like Homer. And I realized that I think that same lesson was brought by someone like Brahms. I think he was literally continuing what Beethoven had started with this. So what we get in that second movement also has that full-hearted feeling, but it's much more stern, and it has a kind of epic beauty to it. And then the third movement is just totally bubbling. And then the last movement has this way of, again, it's like a flow. It's like the flow of water, and something that's so natural about it, and so welcoming in the way that it brings you into the warmth of the music.
One of the things we loved about this performance, Nick, was that you included Liz Freivogel and Daniel McDonough, who we believe at the time were students of yours, who then went on to form their own very successful string quartet, the Jupiter String Quartet. And let's now listen to your performance from October 29th, 2006 of the Brahms Sextet in B-flat major, Opus 18. And this performance was at the First Congregational Church of Chatham. And the performers, the Borromeo String Quartet with guests violist Liz Freivogel and cellist Daniel McDonough.
The Sextet in B-flat major, Opus 18, by the 27-year-old Johannes Brahms in a live performance at the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival on October 29, 2006. The Borromeo String Quartet was joined by violist Liz Freifogel and cellist Daniel McDonough. Our interview guest today has been Nicholas Kitchen, first violinist of the Borromeo String Quartet and former artistic director of the Cape Cod Chamber Music Festival. Thank you, Nick, for that brilliant performance and for speaking with us today. It's always great to see you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
And thanks to our listeners for joining us for this presentation. I am John Manasse.
And I am John Nakamatsu.
We wish you joy and solace through music.
Funding for this program was made possible through the generosity of festival donors and our loyal listening audiences.